Hey Sachin, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. My name is Sachin Bansal. I'm a lawyer. I'm the general counsel of Security Scorecard. We're a tech startup based here in New York City in cybersecurity. And I'm also a stand-up comedian and a producer. And I hear, Joel, that you and TalksOnLaw have got some questions for me.
In the comedy world, what's been the highlight of your career so far?
I think my highlight has been starting my own show and having Jim Gaffigan on it.
Is he your favorite comic?
He is my favorite comic of all time. He's totally my comedic idol. The guy's got 5 kids, and he's really funny.
How many times has he done your show?
We've had him on a number of times, and he's just super gracious and absolutely hilarious.
Any other famous comics that we might know on your show?
Yeah, we've had Hassan, Minhaj, Judah Friedlander, TJ Miller, and the list goes on. We've been lucky.
That's a lot of funny.
Yeah.
You sort of hinted at this earlier, but can we talk about your performance?
Sure.
When you started comedy, did you find that you took to it easily? Was it something that you found you were initially good at?
I think I found that I got addicted early on to the adrenaline rush of being on stage and coming up with material. I was not so great, arguably kind of terrible.
Okay, appreciate the honesty.
And I just kept doing it. And when you're a lawyer and you first start out, you're not that experienced and you might make some mistakes, but you got to keep going. Same thing happened with comedy.
What would you say was your biggest challenge with stand-up comedy?
My biggest challenge was being clean and being funny. It's easy to make some of the more dirty jokes and so forth, but to be creative and think of new material that connects with people, but it's also mom friendly, because my mom will yell at me and I'm scared of her. Is not easy.
So you're a lawyer, you used to be at a large global bank, now you're a tech GC. Is that why you stuck with clean material? Because you're worried you might get yourself fired?
That's part of it. I mean, when I was at a big investment bank for a number of years. I was at some big law firms before that. I wanted to be careful. I didn't want someone taping me. It ends up on YouTube, and we all have heard of those stories of things on YouTube and on Twitter. So I've been careful for that reason.
Comedians talk about killing. They talk about bombing.
Yeah.
Can you share a story where you bombed?
I'll never forget when I bombed. It was at Caroline's Comedy Club here in the city a number of years ago, and I made a couple of jokes that probably didn't resonate, and I retired those, and I think I might have gotten booed off stage in front of maybe about 300, 400 people.
And how'd that feel?
It felt like the worst thing in the world, and I almost quit. And then I had somebody on the street who I didn't know approach me 6 months later and tell me, don't quit, stay with it.
Let's talk about your lawyer skills. Do you think that
Sure.
the skills that go into being a good lawyer have helped you with your comedic career?
Yeah, you're overscheduled. You're dealing with a lot of different personalities, some of which can be a little bit difficult. It's like you said, about being organized, and most of all, you have to be detail oriented. And so there's been a lot of translation in both worlds.
You know, there's this reputation of comics starving, working hard to make it.
The ramen noodles.
Ramen noodles,
Yeah.
and crashing on couches. Have you experienced resentment from other comics when they realize, hey, wait, you actually have a real job?
One of them, when I told him I was a lawyer, he was like, "Why are you doing this shit?" You know what, Joel? I try to actually really separate the two. I almost think of it like being Batman and Bruce Wayne. Okay, when Bruce Wayne's in the boardroom,
Are you calling yourself a superhero?
I like to think of myself as Batman and Bruce Wayne, but without the good looks and all the money, or the cape. But he doesn't have any actual superpower, so that's why I admire him. And he just keeps both worlds totally separate, right? When Bruce Wayne is in the boardroom, nobody knows he's Batman, and he doesn't talk about being Batman. Same with me, right? When I'm at work and I'm, working with our company to grow our business, I'm not being silly and making a ton of jokes. Similarly, when I'm hanging out with a bunch of comics and we're, talking about whatever it might be, I am not going to start talking about the impeachment inquiry or some legal principles. Yeah. So I keep the things pretty separate.
Lawyers are known to use very precise language. Is that reflected in your personal comedic style?
It's a great point, because the secret to comedy in some ways is you have to be really economical with your words. And Jerry Seinfeld talks a lot about this. He took a year to perfect a joke about a Pop-Tart. So writing well and writing concisely is not only important for legal writing, but it's super important in the material that you have for stand-up comedy.
Some people like to hate on lawyers, which at Talks on Law we do not approve of. Have you told lawyer jokes?
I haven't. And I also get annoyed that every time I tell anyone I'm a lawyer or that I do stand-up, people feel the need to tell me their favorite lawyer joke. I mean, it's not like you go to see your doctor and you're like, hey, before you diagnose me and help me with my illness, let me tell you a doctor joke. We're like the only profession where people feel the need to tell a joke about us every time. At least don't do it in front of our face.
I'm on board with that. Law is not an easy job. It's very demanding. I've heard it described as a jealous mistress. How do you make it work? How do you find the time to do both law and comedy?
I think what you're asking is, hey, have you ever thought about quitting and just doing stand-up full time?
Or the opposite?
Yeah, I love doing both. I think being a lawyer is about being a problem solver. That's the way I've looked at it. And that's why I went to law school. And I think fundamentally, no matter what type of law you do, you're helping to solve a problem. And I think that's exciting, and it gets me out of bed, and there's a lot of intellectual stimulation that happens as well with it. But doing comedy, it releases sort of the creative juices inside of me. There's an adrenaline rush. So I have fun doing both.
How about a quick joke before we let you go?
Sure. When I tell people I do stand-up, they are surprised. They look at me in this face and they think, wow, he looks like someone who's really good at Microsoft Excel. And other times I get, he's a well-dressed Uber driver. Maybe Uber Excel is what I prefer.
Or Uber Lux.
Uber Lux. I'm going to add that to my set. Joel, thanks for having me here. This was a lot of fun, and Talks on Law is fantastic.